agreement and convention adopted by the UNICEF. This right was mentioned literally, that each student, each child actually had the right to mandatory free education, particularly in early childhood. In light of this law or convention, the theories of education were developed, and all of us realized that in light of the COVID-19 pandemic, we were actually we started having the conviction and the belief that Maslow's pyramid of needs is more important than Bloom's pyramid in this regard, and that under the COVID-19 pandemic, we are back to the basics of life. So in this regard, we need to be sure that we meet the physical needs. And here in this regard, we need to be sure that children are safe under the impact of this pandemic. It's no longer only the other pandemics that have to do with wars and natural disasters that represent a disaster in this regard in terms of the need for security. The need for safety and security in its psychological dimension has become a basic need for children under the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. So in addition to their social needs and the researchers that have pointed out how children have been deprived from interacting with students and with relatives and with the healthcare services for an entire year. So very quickly, we will highlight that we as educators agree that Maslow's pyramid of needs is back to the top. And our key important point that we focus on is upbringing under the Maslow pyramid of needs, where all of us felt that the priorities of education as content, in terms of content, and the other aspects of knowledge have changed, and that we are back to this hierarchy, which is provided by Bloom's education pyramid, with the basic knowledge and understanding of this knowledge and implementation of knowledge with its different aspects, and the students and the learners' ability to think in the higher capabilities in terms of the ability to understand and fully realize different aspects of knowledge. This has become part of Maslow's pyramid of needs, and we have become able to interact with those whom we interact with in terms of our own students to achieve those needs and humanitarian needs through those skills. So we have these channels of communication that are no longer a means into themselves, as education previously used to boost these concepts. So this introductory element and this introduction and this preparatory points, if any of our dear guests has any questions so far that have to do with education as a concept, and with regards to the children's rights to education as a right granted by all nations, and the impact of COVID-19, and all of us agree on its massive impact in terms of the humanitarian and psychological and existential aspects, which we have given full priority to as educators in terms of dealing with educators, or dealing with the age group that was pointed out in terms of children's rights. Now I would like to receive any questions, please. Dr. Maher, if you have a question, peace be with you. God bless you. Peace be with you. God bless you, Dr. Rama. Actually, I've been listening to you. I'm very happy to listen to you. Even you have a spiritual dimension to what you have been saying. Thank you very much. I would just like to say that this is actually a quick question. If we're talking about children's right to education, we need to protect this right. So we need to put it in the right place. As we pointed out, for a whole year we have been facing the impact of COVID-19 pandemic in terms of education. let's make a quick review of all what has been using and implementing over the past year. Let's see what we have used in that year in terms of the tools that we used. And if the tools that we have used in the previous year were the same ones or the same tools, are the same one that we'll be using in this year, we will not be evaluating anything at all. So I believe that the world from around us has changed and has been moving rapidly. And if we use the same tools, I believe that we will have a problem. We need to use a different tool. So I believe that we need to have a comprehensive review of what has been utilized in terms of education in particular. So, and the things that we need to do in the upcoming year, I believe in brief, this is what we should be doing. I don't want to take up too much time in this regard, but we have dear colleagues in this regard, they can add to this point, and I will have further interventions. Ms. Anad, I would like to thank you very much for all what you pointed out. Definitely, if we do not really have a scientific approach in terms of research and review, and the pillars of research in terms of review and other processes, and all of this data or information that need to be gathered, so we can realize what has happened and to have an in-depth understanding and understand what should be done. And what you have kindly pointed out is actually high time. It's now the high time for starting once again and not to waste any time and to think in the practical and pragmatic steps that we can start working on, even if we're working on small circles and moving within a limited scope.
With international committees to do questionnaires and follow up with the simplest way. We can measure what the students achieved and to be scientific according to the research. Thank you very much. Is there any other question? I would like to excuse you, Doctor. My name is Naji Hosni from Egypt. I would like to express my happiness that I am listening to you and I am attending this meeting on the Arabic level. I would like to comment within the fourth revolution. There's a book for Luciano about the fourth revolution, talking about the values and ethics of information, but talk about the right of education. And within this industrial and digital revolution, there should be values and ethics that Arab need to be trained about. We need to develop Arabic tools that can continue, please, that can deal in an excellent way, as now we are consuming technology with all its kinds. We need to be interacting with it. I would like to say that what you said is excellent, and Maslow pyramid really is number one now in comparison to Bloom. And my question, when educators, Arab educators, to set an Arabic interactive model that is able to deal with all other Arabic communities. Thank you very much. This is the hope and this is the vision for the future. that we are trying to work at. We are talking about 3 dimensions: content, the knowledge content, which should be in Arabic, in different subjects, about also the research according to the tools in approving and accrediting the different material, and also we need to have these contents with the technological tools in order to prepare the teachers and educators with their different levels, leaders, teachers, as the shape of education is different now. The framework, we need to review all the frameworks between our hands, all the skills, even the media. The whole system is changed now. And for that, we need to be alerted and we need to go toward the change to achieve what we want, as the thing is running very fast. The digital space and the virtual space is huge now. We need to set teams to work on these different aspects. And also, we need to have knowledge contents in Arabic language that is edited, reviewed from academic establishments and capable teams to go along with the digital technology, and also training the teachers to be able to be ready. Now we are not using the chalkboard anymore. We need to be up to date. Thank you very much for your question and for the comment you added. And this is a big challenge for us as educators within COVID-19. I will continue my presentation now, if you allow me. Here, 1 year when the whole world is under lockdown, and we can see the new reality, our daily life, everything's changed. Can you imagine that? Now we have different glimpses of silence around the streets and the cities. We couldn't hear the singing from the balconies, as the world now is under this heavy pandemic. We all shared the same lockdown, and the impact will stay within ourselves. Will remain this impact within our kids. We need to be aware that this kid who witnessed and who was isolated from the whole world, his relatives, his extended family, his friends, his neighborhood, his school, his psychological and physical development establishment, his school, all of this kid, he left and he was confused with the discussions between the mother and the father, between his friends on the virtual world, between the uncle, between the aunts. Again, the whole planet, the globe, speak to us about the whole humanity. They are dealing with unprecedented pandemic. We are dealing with an enemy. Still now, we are not fully understand it. And the impact, physical impact, or even the hidden impact, will go deep in our life for a long time. For that, where is education and learning under COVID-19? What happened? Here are some examples from different countries: Finland, Norway, Ghana, Australia. These are some names of countries that we share this globe with. Finland, Norway, Ghana. What do we know about the world, how they dealt or how they are dealing with COVID-19? Please allow me to take some details from UNESCO meeting when they talked about missing education. And there was different research on the international level, European level, Asian level, where many papers added to these questions how the world dealt with COVID-19 and what are the impact on childhood and their right for education. This slide, Dr. Venkat presented during the conference, and he spoke within his presentation about these numbers. We can see it on the slide. The lockdown for the whole world. More than 150 million children were deprived from going to their schools. More than 214 children, they lost 3 trimesters in their education. Here we mean face-to-face. Some countries, they managed to continue education through digital and virtual education with the different platforms. They managed to do that. But still, this is another aspect where we need to shed light in the future. Has learning happened within this virtual education? And I would like to mention my sisters and friends and mothers. At the end of each trimester, they were saying, "Congratulations, you succeeded in grade 4. And here the mothers and parents, they were studying with their kids. They were sharing sometimes all or most of what the teacher presented to the students because they were studying with them. Dr. Blanket here talked about the numbers of students, millions of students under lockdown. They were deprived from going to their schools. We are talking about more than 150 million students in red. Other numbers, they were partially lockdown, not total lockdown, or some percentages here. Yes, some countries, they continued face-to-face education and they haven't closed their schools. But these statistics, we can see it on the international level, and that shows the fact. Here, this is the Arab world. 90 million children were under total lockdown, 56 million under partial lockdown, and 22, they were still face-to-face education, 22 million children. So there was different variation within the scenarios for different countries. And the different countries, they live different scenarios. In the same conference also, they were talking about closing schools. 2 factors, it was very essential. The first one, the infrastructure. The global infrastructure, especially in the digital world, are they ready for this step? Are they capable to interact with this lockdown and to move with the remote education. We need to check the internet connections. We need to check if there electricity on the rural areas, in all the part of the world, on the world level, to make sure that everybody within the different communities under lockdown and within the family to have tablets, laptops, computers, smart technology in the same house. Do we have connections to the internet? Can they subscribe to the different internet network or make connections? When there is also internet, each member or each child or each student has got his own laptop or smart tablet. This is a question laid on the table, and what Dr. Schneff's here in this slide, when she presented her research, the factors, as I said, the first factor is the digital lockdown. Here we say about female and male students, how it was reflected on the internet availability, and also the capable family to continue its students' education. In this slide, we can see the numbers on the world. Many students, they were deprived from the internet, from a supportive family, from a well-educated family, that they know the methodologies, how they can support their students in the family, what knowledge they have to transfer or to stress the information. Families and parents, they are partners in this remote or virtual education. They are part of the process. They are not isolated. And sure, that have impact on the outcomes, on the content, on the right of child to be educated. And the numbers reflect that and show the great challenge the Arab world lived and still living, also in Europe and the whole world. I would like also to read here, within this research paper on the international level, it here presents one of the famous international assessment, and we all deal with it, especially in the international one, TIMSS assessment for science and math, which is doing internationally, and most countries, they deal with it. In this slide, it was the same for Dr. Schneff. TIMSS in 2019, the national exam for science and math, present here the results for the different countries in Europe, as we can see on the screen. It was last year on the European level. No country managed to do it last year till the end of February. Only 2 countries managed to do it in 2020. And here in this line, the orange line, we can see also the difference in achievement for the same country between 2019 and 2020. And that show the learning outcome decreased if we compare between 2020 and 2019. In another slide, which is based on research and collecting data and analyze it, this slide show, as we can see, on the international level, also in Europe, Dr. Schneff, she spoke about the facts, about what happened during the lockdown and the international results in Europe. In her presentation and her interaction, she presented the fact, which is sometimes we can't believe it, that the world is divided, where there is a digital countries, they are managed to do it, and other countries, they lack the digital infrastructure, especially that also they lack the enough or sufficient economy. But in Europe, according to this research paper, indicate that many of these countries, they suffered from the lockdown and from also the capable parents who can support their kids during the lockdown. So, for example, in Italy, here we can see the numbers. These are the numbers of students who can't receive support in their education, especially at home, which is now turned to be their classroom. Another slide within Dr. Schneff's presentation. Here in Europe and also in the Arab world. And this slide confirms and emphasizes some countries, they closed, in Europe, they closed 22 weeks, other 14, other 8, 9. And this is here show the number of weeks that schools were closed. In the Arab world, we can see the schools were closed longer weeks. And this is another indication and information that we need to read it and understand it. There's a gap between the situation, especially regarding the number of of school closures between Europe and the Arab world. And this can be taken into consideration. And we need to review what happened to build a hope in order to deal with it in the future and improve the situation. We continue here on the Arab world level. We give some indications here and there for these research papers. As I said, within this conference, they give many facts and the summary of what was reflected and presented. This is big infrastructure challenge for the whole world. This is a challenge for the family which can support psychologically, academically, and economically their kids during education. It's an international challenge, not only for this continent or other continent. This is for the whole world. We are common. We are sharing these challenges, and we need to be open to all experiments and benefit from them. We can take what can support us in our environment, especially when there is a small gap between them. Within this umbrella, as we say, we are all suffering. We are all in the same boat. We all hope to have our kids be safe, and we all hope that change will be toward the future, and we will not get backward. We need to take what is suitable and build what is good for the future and what is good for the digital wave. With our reading for the Arab world, definitely there is other examples from the Arab world. For example, the UAE, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, Jordan, and all the Arab countries. What happened there? Again, this slide show us the percentage
for the students who could not deal with the internet. They had no access to the internet and they could not go to the schools because of the COVID-19 pandemic. They stayed at home, whether in first grade, including grade KG, and grade 1s and 2, including higher classes, and in universities and the entire educational process with all its establishments. We see that these figures show that large numbers were really prevented from continuing their education, distance learning, because they did not have access to the internet in their locations and their homes, in the percentages that you see, which show the challenge associated with the lack of internet access. Therefore, we can summarize the points that we want to say, and we would open the door to listening to the interventions that you may have after highlighting the facts that are associated with the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on education. We've seen that there have been lockdowns in specific locations, and that students were severed from the reality that they lived or used to live, and the scenes of those children worldwide jumping around for the even potential of having schools reopened, or the potential of having the ability to return to schools or to listen back to their teachers, welcoming back face-to-face back to schools. This idea itself represented a dream for them, a hope that they kept dreaming about it. They kept begging their mothers and their fathers, when can we go back to schools? And when it was returned, they were very committed. When they had the ability to return to schools, they were very committed to precautionary measures. The world was really surprised of how serious and how keen children were on continuing and furthering their education. So this is something that about learning how to wear the masks and so on, and all the things that we need in terms of precautionary measures to ensure, let's say, that we continue to wash our hands and implement the precautionary measures. All of this in the hope that, or in the sense that they wanted to get back to life, to the form of life that they have really learned about and they got accustomed to, which is very important to them. We're not just talking about social interactions through schools, which encompass the knowledge and realistic and psychological and social and emotional development and involvement of students and children. It really provides, schools and education establishments provide a great deal of support in this domain, as we have been accustomed to the forms of education, modes of education in the pre-COVID-19 era. Your questions and your ideas on the challenges that students faced and children faced under the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. Ms. Rana, we have a question that we received on Facebook from Ms. Dua. Can you hear me? Yes, please. Go ahead. Let's hear Ms. Dua's question. So she's asking, how can we overcome the difficulties of following up our children's education through the distance learning approach? This is a question. This is a question that we need really to dedicate so much time to talk about. She always follows up on her students, her son and daughter, and that they continue to be distracted. So in terms of how to assist the students themselves and how to assist the schools themselves. So how can she overcome these challenges or these difficulties? I would like to recommend her and to recommend all parents, if you allow me, to discuss this point. Please educate yourself as a mother. Now, mothers and fathers have a double responsibility. The means of interacting with their children, she is the one who will be ensuring that students are committed to the education process. It's highly important. How can mothers that used to send them just to school in the morning and then follow up on the normal working day or her day at home as usual, while this studying student would study at school and would learn at school and everything would happen at that school. How can now she, as a mother, to interact with him by sitting with him, by teaching him, by listening to him, memorizing and studying and everything that is required in the education process? She never had an inkling of thinking that this may even happen. So she never had this capability. So first, the parents, the father and mother, need to agree on this and to be unanimously agree on a framework for dealing with children in this regard. We see fathers trying to comment on the mothers and saying that you're not doing a good job with this, so don't even try. We should never really make this a loss for students or for children. This dichotomy and this lack of harmony among the parents is something that makes this experience even more difficult for the children, because they have never been prepared psychologically or educationally, or with the tools or the mechanisms or the approaches. So for children, this is something that is very confusing. It really made them lose a major part of their ability to learn in a disciplined manner and to follow instructions and to be committed. Children say to their mothers, you don't know. I don't want to listen to you. I want to listen to my teacher. I will listen only to my teacher. And what my teacher said is not what you said. And I have it all recorded on my laptop or my, teachers have actually no control over students. I'm not talking about real control. I'm talking about communicating with the students and communicating with the children. This role now has been assumed by the parents, the mothers and fathers, the teacher's role. So parents need to communicate with the teachers and ask them what to do. How can we assist our children to learn? How can we collaborate with you? All of these points, we should have a table of tasks that children should accomplish at home once they do it and once they learn properly. How can we be able to deal with them? Many parents do not know much about education and do not have the ability. They don't possess the knowledge, and they actually belong to a certain category that they live within the category of the community that they have been suffering from lack of education, not to mention pedagogical approaches. So thank you very much. We've been doing, clarifying this in a great manner. Ms. Ranam. Another question, in this case, how can we assess the level of learning for our children in light of the spread of COVID-19 pandemic? Parents cannot follow up on the children 100%. How can they measure the learning process? Please let me give you the second question, then allow them to ask you more than one question. Please go ahead. The second question says some countries are facing lack of electronic devices and weak internet access or weak internet service. How can we overcome these technological barriers which limit distance learning and learning for children? In brief and quickly, we have learned a lot about important and massive development. For some schools, the school principals donated some smart devices. Even teachers donated some money to purchase computers and also purchase smart devices for the students, even at the level of suburbs and local communities. The family that cannot afford these tablets or computers, they have actually been collaborating in those suburbs to address some of these issues at the internal level, at the local level, and the schools, and also in the suburbs and the different local communities, and in some cities where we learned about massive initiatives globally that have really enabled some countries and some cities to proceed with a great deal of support from national and different entities and organizations, and collaboration with some schools. Of course, some schools really had addressed official letters about the number of students that they have, the lists, waiting lists that they have, this children or students who do not have smart devices or electronic devices, and certain devices, or a large number of them, were donated to those students and dedicated to them. So we have had a great deal of collaboration among people in this regard. This is something that has to do with the basics of development, the basics of distributing budgets in the different countries globally. I'm speaking at the global level. So each country should dedicate part of the educational budget to be dedicated to smart devices and to electronic devices? Thank you very much. I would like to thank the person who asked this question. So now let's move on and receive more questions, because the participants have so many questions. I'm afraid that we may run out of time and not be able to answer their questions. We have here a question by Mr. Yusuf. Mr. Yusuf Shifoui, please. Hello, how are you? Thank you very much for the information and the valuable information that have been detailing for us and about the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has really shaped a new reality and paved the way for an electronic shift, a digital shift that we were not really ready for. I said that myself as a parent, we used to tell our children, don't use the computer or the smart device for too long, go and study. Now, during the pandemic, this is what we used to say before the pandemic. Now, during the pandemic, we follow up our children and say, come on, use the smart device, study, use the computer more. So it has really caused some sort of confusion, or let's say some sort of shock for the children themselves, and even for the parents, because this is a different approach that they were not accustomed to. So this made everybody confused, actually, in the initial stage. In the second stage, now we have been really having this reconciliation with technology for the sake of education. But of course, we have children's nature. They want to play, they want to have fun. They need to be more disciplined in terms of spending a long period of time in front of the smart screens and smart devices to learn. So this has really created a deficiency in this regard in terms of learning properly, and a major problem for this, even for teachers and the way they prepare their lessons. They did not have enough time to get ready for the digital transformation. All of these new variables could have been invested for the future. This is something important. All of us were looking forward to digital transformation. We were going to achieve it sooner or later, but the pandemic, despite its cruelty, taught us how to adapt quickly and how to move forward in our community. We were actually facing this actually in a difficult situation. Now we are in a position where we can invest and learn from our failures and learn from what we have experienced for the sake of our children and our young people, to how to utilize technology in a way that does not have a negative impact on one's psychology or family situation or family life, because we know that in villages and distant remote areas, they don't have internet access. So the family may have to sell a cow or so to buy a table, so or to buy a smart device. This is something that is quite difficult for them. Now there is a socio-economic factor and an educational factor. What should we do? Should we sacrifice the cow or the child's education, who needs access to smart devices and the internet to continue learning? All of these create new problems and thorny issues created by the pandemic. I hope that through this webinars, we can pinpoint the pain points and collaborate together to address them for the benefit of future generations. What we have learned from the pandemic, especially that we as humans are learning at all levels, and we already have more than enough to ensure a smooth transition to the age of technology and a smooth transition of education through technology that can boost enlightenment and education. This is the main objective. So I've been hearing to all the attempts that have been made by countries and organizations in this regard. Thank you very much. And now I don't want to take up too much time and to let a large number of people participate. Thank you very much, Mr. Yusuf. Mr. Rana, would you like to intervene, or should we take Mr. Ashraf's question? Yes, Mr. Yusuf, this is the ambition. May Almighty Allah enable us to achieve success in this regard. We hope that we can turn this challenge into an opportunity that we can learn from. I fully agree with what you have said. Definitely, we have a major role to play, to collaborate in the hope, in a pragmatic manner, in the hope, or we have really high hopes that we may be able to manage to reach some sort of balance between all of these needs and challenges, particularly in these environments which really respect and appreciate and we should support them in this regard. Now moving on to the second question. We have Mr. Ashraf with us. Mr. Ashraf Shawqi Abasul, please. Peace be with all of you. Peace be with you. First, it's an honor and pleasure to be with you today. I would like to thank Ms. Anna for this wonderful intervention. I really enjoyed what she has said, the wonderful thing that she has said. And you have really highlighted the latest research figures that focused on this topic. And we continue to live this pandemic, and we have seen this highly important research. I just wanted to add that some areas in other countries, other than the Arab world, that were used to some sort of lockdown at schools. There were emergency centers in the USA which pointed out that the issue of lockdown are happening already for them because they have wildfires or tornadoes, so they are used to a lockdown environment. So the COVID-19 pandemic was the worst of them. So those schools or those educational systems which have been used to lockdown were really helpless in front of this pandemic. So there's some sort of major ambiguity that wraps this entire issue, the impact on students, the impact of lockdowns, the fear from the spread of the virus, and so on. So I would just like to say that everyone over the past year, everyone has been developing their performance. Everyone was surprised. Even today, dealing with major companies such as Microsoft and Microsoft Teams in virtual classes, Zoom, all of these major establishments, up till now, they continue to develop their products. And they are reviewing their support to the education process, and they receive feedback to develop their own tools. So if there's a deficiency, the deficiency is everybody having these deficiencies, and everybody's having these drawbacks, and everybody's trying to enhance their performance. As for the students' right and the parents' right in this regard, I believe that children suffer, and so do their parents. There's, as we have pointed out, there's the issue of the right to education. But I would like to say, and actually this was also highlighted earlier by you at the beginning, that the needs, the psychological needs and humanitarian needs, as represented in Maslow's pyramid of needs, are far more important than Bloom's pyramid in this regard. Speaking as educators in the field, we have seen a lower performance among all students. After talking to social workers and the school administration, we see that the circumstances go back to the impact of the family because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Those students that are studying online do not have someone at home to support them. So there are many, many other things that we cannot list very quickly. So our intervention will not be highly successful in those factors. We as educators and people working in the educational domain, we know that there are some skills and some aspects of knowledge that parents have not acquired in the proper manner. We want to assure parents, we should not really say that I must help my son to get a full mark in each exam. Let's consider this as a gift to enable them to deal with the difficulties and deal with, to see the real capabilities of my son in terms of the education performance. When we shifted to online learning, we were shocked by parents' feedback. They thought that their children were much better than that, or that their children were much worse than they really are. After seeing their children learn at home while they were learning online, things were different. The same applies to the behavior of students. The behavior of certain students were really impacted because they have been far away from their peers and their schoolmates. So many other factors have been affecting parents. I hope that they would look into what we can learn from this gift and to be able to see our sons and daughters from different angles other than the ones that we are very accustomed to. We know that the ability or the skills of writing, handwriting receded, and a number of skills receded, and social skills, education skills, some of them really have been receding. However, after returning safe and sound to face-to-face learning, we will do our very best to address these deficiencies, and thank you very much for listening. Amen. Amen. May Almighty Allah enable us to do that. Amen. Another intervention, Ms. Maria? We have with us Ms. Inas Radi. Please, Ms. Inas, go ahead. Peace be with you, Doctor. How are you doing? I'm fine. It's an honor to have you with us. I'm very happy that we're with you today. We really enjoy it, actually. We keep listening very attentively. God bless you. You're doing a great job. You have a great deal of knowledge and an outstanding knowledge. We really need to listen to such important information. I'm a pharmacist and I teach children of determination. I have a son who is a child of determination as well. For 21 years, I've been training with him on how to deal with people with special needs. I have a master's degree in social counseling and family counseling. When you put up Maslow's law, I said now we'll be focusing on Maslow's law. You really ticked a box for me because I live in this domain and I've been working in this domain. I deal with deaf students on a daily basis. I've been working with them for 1 whole year online. They don't go to school. I live in the UAE and I've been working with them for like 9 years. I've faced many challenges in terms of teaching people of determination online. I've been working with Mr. Ashraf. I really support Mr. Ashraf, what he said in terms of the gifts, or let's say the silver lining of this tribulation. So there have been many things that we learned in the silver lining of this pandemic. So thank God, Almighty Allah has enabled us and granted us the ability and the power, the energy to look forward and to try to foresee the future. So through this platform and through this wonderful webinar, I would like to ask you, it's a question and a message as well. People of determination, children of determination, this whole year and up till now, and for the next year, I believe that they are facing a major challenge because of the distance learning facts and realities, and because of the fact that most therapists, those who are dealing with them, they need to deal with them one-to-one. They need to see them face-to-face. My son's special circumstances, he has brain paralysis, so distance learning has become impossible. So the therapist visits him at home. He lives in Egypt. He lives in an internal school, and they go to the therapist goes to him at home, and the house is being sanitized on a daily basis. So it's something they're saving a great deal of attention there. And they are trying to adapt to this silver lining, but he doesn't go to school anymore. He does not even breathe outside the place where we live. So I know this, and I know what the impact of this. I've not been able to go to Egypt, to travel to Egypt to see him. I see him only online. So I call upon you to convey this message, or the message of this highly important category of the community. A large number of children of determination, students of determination exist in the community. Around me, I have, let's say, a very large number of children of determination in all levels of learning. Some of them are gifted, some of them have ADHD. All of them, under this pandemic, are facing the impact of the pandemic and the online learning. They are facing a major burden in terms of daily interaction and one-to-one interaction. Many of them, let's say, they were afflicted. 2 or 3 of them, I know, lost their parents to the COVID-19 pandemic in certain areas. So they are facing a double psychological burden and other burdens that have to do with the means of communication and learning. I see this. Physicians are more like soldiers in the field of offering medical services, and we are doing the same thing in the field of education. I believe there is an important opportunity for all of us as educators, particularly therapists, or people dealing with the people in the middle of the area between the parents and the teachers. We live in this middle area between teachers and parents. We need to go down to the field and be able to communicate with everyone. We may face another year under the pandemic, so we need to train and to have an educational portfolio for communication, face-to-face communication, and who will be able to reach and how to reach them. I believe that through these stories that you have highlighted, we can do that. All of us need to develop and need to support them. As you have kindly pointed out, in some villages, we don't have internet access. I support what they say, but we can record videos or something and display it to them. Some teachers can reach these remote areas, and then we can have a link with all of us to be able to deliver information. First, people of determination and children of determination, I can help. Maybe you can help us with that. And how can we do that? Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for this comment, especially for thank you that you are now dealing with this difficult segment or part of the community, and that showed us how to thank Allah for the good blessings that other people have, and this is part of the challenge under this pandemic, and you shed light on an important area, especially when you talk about the solutions. You spoke about some solutions, how we can deal with it, and definitely the currency, there is a second phase, like John Hattie, he spoke about the visual learning, and now it's considered very important one in the whole world. He also participated in the educational conference that will finish tomorrow, and he's in his paper said thanks to COVID-19. Why? Because that make us reviewing the whole system, and also that make us to change the time and how the family or even the students they spend their time, how the family now they pay more time or they spend more time with their kids at home, sit beside them on the laptop or the computer, and now they become more aware about their academic level, about their behavior problems. COVID-19 achieved what was impossible to any educational system to achieve by itself, by reviewing the content and the elements of the current education system and also the international standards. So in any problem, there is a negative side and a positive side. You, as you added, the challenge, create power to change, create determination. We had these plans long time ago, but now we have to go forward with it. We have to get it out of the drawer and put it on the table and start to execute these plans, to change, to develop, to improve, to support. All of this, some people through the radio, teachers start to work together. Group of teachers, they start to explain the teachers on the radio, on TV, and also the teacher in the village. He himself or she herself, he with his own donkey, he traveled to the city in order to give the lesson on the radio or on the TV. If a person, anyone in this system is responsible about in being innovative, being creative in what he is doing. Miss Mariam, we are with you. Is there any other comment? Yes, there is many. Yes, doctor. Thank you very much for what you added. We benefited from it. As you know, for the interruption for educational systems, the biggest disadvantage for low-income countries and middle-income countries, and especially the people who live in poor or rural areas, refugees, or people with disabilities. The lockdown had a great impact on them, especially the people who can't join these schools. Maybe next year. For example, there is possibility for children, they will not go back to their school. And after this lockdown and school closures, the impact will be great on the girls. They will get married and they will have early pregnancy, and that will have impact on the sexual violence. What is the solution for this? The impact, in order not to get negative impact. Thank you very much for your question. You took us to deep ideas, and we will get quickly to it. So it's really big challenge, and it will happen soon. It happened, and it will happen. It will remain as a negative impact, a serious impact, which is already before, but it will increase and will be deepen. It will be deeper within the reality. So what is the solution? I hope I have the solution in my hand. I hope the solution is by a signature or like a decree only or a small comment. The solution is a community, raising awareness, patience. All of us, we as educators, we have the responsibility. We have the hope. We create the hope. We raise the awareness, we being patient, also set the role model in the community, and what you are doing in the support. That will create the difference. Thank you for your question and your comment. There is more 4 questions. I will read the 4 comments for you. The first one, how can we achieve the quality in education, especially in the virtual education, and there is no continuity for students going to schools? What are the tools that can help us in assessing the scientific subjects and to achieve the educational outcomes? Number 3, how can we overcome the lack of technological knowledge, especially now education and in the future will be based mainly on technology? Number 4, what are the tools that we can help the children with disabilities to support them in their education? And currently, education is expensive financially. What is the solution for this problem? I think you spoke before regarding the people with disabilities. Really, I like the questions and I like the comments. You talked about these comments. True, we are living in a great challenge community where now we see conflicts, wars, catastrophes, crises. So the question is, are there solutions? And all these questions, Ms. Mariam, you spoke about the quality of education and how we can evaluate the achievement of students and how we can also evaluate the traditional learning about how they acquire the technology. On the other side, students now, they are leaders in softwares. They are leaders about how to deal or interact with that. We need to be subjective and to look from not only one angle, to have a comprehensive look. What do we need to assess? What do we need to evaluate? We need to review what is the meaning of knowledge, especially when we talk about the technological knowledge. Everybody in the community, we need to stand up and start to learn. We need to subscribe. We need to learn. We need, for people with disabilities, we have the financial support. Sorry to interrupt you.
تفضل أستاذ ماهر.
Yes, Mr. Maher, please. Dr. Maher, please. Dr. Maher.
اسمح لي أتابع بانتظارك.
Okay, I will continue till Mr. Dr. Maher unmute his mic.
أوكي دكتورة رنا كان السؤال.
So, Dr. Rana, about the internet weakness, is it for everybody or only for me?
لا ليس عام.
ضعف الإنترنت عندي فقط ولا
The internet weakness, is it for everybody or for me? We can hear you. It's only for you. Your internet connection is not stable. Miss Mariam? Yes, Dr. Maher, only for you. Your internet connection is not stable.
أوكي أستاذة رنا تفضلي.
Okay, Ms. Rana. So I was saying, at the end of this presentation and this workshop and webinar, I would like to thank all the people who asked or commented. We need hours and hours to discuss in order to deal with these issues, especially that these topics. I would like to end. As educators, we need to re-evaluate the skills. Students, they need now to learn about the software and applications. They need to know how to print or type on the keyboard. They need now to know how to know the concept of the industrial revolution, of the artificial intelligence. This is not related to the economical status. We as educators, we need to interact with this topic. We need to think about it and to focus, not to exclude any students. We need to include all the students. Remember, it's the right of students to learn. And now I say, it's the right of students to have digital learning in order to know what to educate, how to educate, and also the classroom periods timing, the annual calendar, especially for face-to-face, or the blended model. We need to study all these elements and to check the mechanism, the international assessments, and we need to review the outcomes for what we are missing within the students. That we'll see how within the previous education system we will manage to bridge the gap. We need an educational vision for the future. We need to have a shared vision. Alpha generation, these students who are living between us now, to where they are heading, what are the future that is waiting for them, and to what future we are preparing them for. We need to focus on that all. We need to think deeply about it. We need to cooperate and create a success story within the good experiments as you added. You lived all these experiments and you will still live it in the future. So I would like to thank you very much for attending. I'm committed to the time, and I will leave the last 3 minutes to say to Ms. Mariam, if there is any notes or comments, these are the references that I referred to. within my webinar. Hopefully, it was useful and also encouraging for more efforts from your side. And remember, we need to go forward and not backward. Thank you very much for your attention. There is a comment from Mr. Najah Husni. Mr. Najah.
ايوه الو
تفضل حضرتك كيف عندك مداخله؟
اسمحي
Mr.
لي
Najah, I would like here at the end, I would like to thank you very much, as you are always spreading hope. You give us this session that not to look only to these problems, but also to look for the hope and to reconsider the role of educators that we are working at. And this situation that put pressure on the families, especially, I don't want to say the poor, but that the limitation of digital era is not another burden on this. We need to have new types and to try to re-reform the situation to give more push for the educational system and to achieve what the students want, to improve the situation in the Arab world, to create our own tools that need enrichment for the Arabic content. I invite you and the other Arab specialists to have this meeting as a start, to have a community, professional learning community, not to stop within this pandemic, but to work about beyond COVID-19. Thank you very much, Dr. Rana. Thank you for Educators Without Borders for this chance to meet together. Thank you very much. Thank you for you. Miss Mariam, any comment? Miss Dr. Maher, any comment, Dr. Maher? Last comment, please, Dr. Maher. Quickly. There is a problem. Can you hear me? Yes, yes.
سامعينك دكتور تفضل.
استاذ مريم.
Miss Mariam, can you hear me? Can you hear us?
يبدو عنده مشكلة أستاذ
It seems that he has got technical problem. Unfortunately, we are not lucky, doctor. We can't hear you.
أستاذة رنا أنا بس حابة أشكرك مش على الشات.
Miss Rana, I would like to thank you very much. Not on the chat box. I would like to say my thanking by voice. Thank you very much for what you say.
أيوة كنت
Fatima speaking. I'm speaking. Dr. Maher, there's a problem in your technical connection. Unfortunately. Yes, Ms. Fatima. I can hear you. Can you hear me? Yes, please go ahead. Ms. Rana, can you hear me? Yes.
تفضل أستاذ ماهر.
Yes, Dr. Maher, go ahead.
سامعينك تفضل.
Yes, we can hear you. There is a point I would like to add. From the real problems,
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me? Dr. Maher? Yeah, from the real crisis, can you please write it in the chat box? Maybe it's easier. Yeah, this is type of the problem in the virtual real world. I am not sure what's happening in the internet connection. Please write it in the chat box.
لا بأس عليك يا دكتور.
ممكن
لا بأس عليك.
أو السؤال
أنا جست بحكي عن المنظومة القيمية.
I want to speak about the values and ethics.
كل الاحترام يا دكتور.
Thank you very much, doctor. You can write it in the chat box. Yes, I will include it in the chat box. Thank you very much. Ms. Fatima, please go ahead. Sorry for interrupting you.
مش هزود عن
I will not add more here.
تمام. بس يعني حبيت أشكرك.
I wanted to thank you very much.
اللغة العربية بتطرب الأذن.
And the Arabic language here is very nice.
من زمان عايزة أقولك كده. كمان إن شاء الله الكورونا تخلص.
Hopefully this pandemic will finish. I hate technology.
ذاكر بالأونلاين وكده. بس أنا مش
My sister study online, but I am not convinced with it.
مجبورين نقتنع فيه. أنا مثلك كنت بالأول بس.
Now we have to stick to it.
عايزه اقول لكم حاجه كمان يا جماعه، يعني مش بس مجبورين، هو بيوفر فرصه لناس كتيره.
It creates many chances for people.
انا عملت 2 ماسترز بتوعي اونلاين.
I did 2 masters online because of cancer. I did it 10 years ago. So remote learning is not new for me. So Fatima, this is obligatory now. And now we are all the same.
يا أستاذة فاطمة نحن نعيش في رفاه.
Yes, Mustafa, we are living in prosperity. I can speak into New York, Yugoslavia, Indonesia, Malaysia, anytime. I can learn from him, he can learn from me. This is the prosperity the digital world gives us, and for that we need to be ready for it. And we need to dedicate our time and effort to benefit from it. Like it's the same, like driving cars. You can't imagine what's happened to humanity when they saw the car for the first time. Some people provide it with the grass, like a goat or sheep. The same. This is a revolution. The third wave, the fourth revolution, and we need to take it in order to benefit from it. Thank you very much. Really, I appreciate your attendance, and thank you very much for the comments and intervention and the interaction. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much, educators. Thank you. All the best. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. I would like to ask to thank everybody. Bakshan, Mr. Ashraf, Mr. Osama, Fatima, Yusuf, Najah, Maher. Thank you very much for all your attendance. I hope to see you very soon. Thank you very much. Thank you. إلى اللقاء. إلى اللقاء. إلى اللقاء. شكرا جزيلا. بارك الله فيكم. God bless you. Thank you very much.
شكرا ومع السلامة عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much.